The end of the day with Ray. Hello, my friends. Well, if you look on that Sharp Interactive board, it says waiting for approval is not journalism. Underneath that, you'll see some logos: Visual Edge IT, Konica Minolta, Ninestar, Lexmark. Ladies and gentlemen, these logos represent some huge stories that our industry's media analysts have completely ignored. Completely. Don't be fooled. Don't be fooled by the copied and paste internal response that Lexmark put out. Don't be fooled regarding Konica Minolta when they publish all the awards Konica Minolta buys. Don't be fooled by the fact that none of them have said anything about Visual Edge IT, giving Visual Edge IT the ammunition to go into the marketplace and tell everybody that none of the stuff the end of the day Ray's talking about is true because none of the other analysts or media are talking about it. That's a fact. I've talked about that before. That's really disturbing. Now I want us to think about Keypoint Intelligence, the largest analytical firm in our industry, the largest one, owned by Atar Capital. They got more money than all the other analysts and media outlets put together. They brag about how they're the biggest. They brag about having analysts all over the world. Could you imagine if they were actually analyzing Lexmark and Ninestar and that analyzation was based on geopolitics? And over the last year and a half, they were actually trying to figure out if the Panta printer, the G&G printer, the Lexmark printer, the Lexmark Go line were all manufactured in the same facilities. How were they manufactured? Could you imagine if Keypoint Intelligence was doing that research, how more prepared the industry would be for what it faces today as Ninestar, Lexmark's owners are banned from bringing products into the U.S. supply chain? Could you imagine? Could you imagine if Konica Minolta was actually being scrutinized by the industry's media and analysts? For the last 3.5 years, I've been talking about All Covered. I believe All Covered isn't making any money. I believe All Covered is completely dragging down Konica Minolta. Here's the reality, ladies and gentlemen. What do our analysts do? They allow Konica Minolta to go on their venues and talk about how All Covered's kicking butt, knocking it out of the park. They love to share the adjectives, but they don't share any of the details because they don't ask for the details. Think about our friends over here at Visual Edge IT, a $300 million roll-up with a loan and non-accrual. No one in the industry is even talking about it. Why is that? Keypoint Intelligence, with all their analysts, with their expertise and all of their money, they could be doing some big investigating on that story. Not only that, they could be digging into all the private equity-backed roll-ups. These private equity-backed roll-ups have been sitting in private equity hands for a decade. You don't think that's a story in its own right? Could you imagine what Keypoint Intelligence could do with all of their resources as they investigated all those roll-ups? What other disasters are coming? But that's not what they do they? Keypoint Intelligence is more concerned about Visual Edge and all the roll-ups subscribing to the BLI magazine. Or maybe they want to sell them the e-commerce site. Keypoint Intelligence just did a deal with Agent Dealer. You know, we got this cooperation going on with Agent Dealer, a CRM company. I'll predict right now that Keypoint Intelligence with Atar Capital will buy Agent Dealer this year. It'll happen, folks. They'll buy them. So Keypoint Intelligence, now they're going to be a CRM company, in my opinion. Now they have the e-commerce platform. They're doing cybersecurity stuff. They're selling OEMs all these BLI awards. How in the world are they an unbiased, newsworthy organization? It's absurdity to even think they are. Because if the folks in our industry that are responsible to bring our industry analytics and journalism were doing their jobs, we would be hearing a whole lot more about those logos on the board. But we don't hear hardly anything. Over the weekend, I published an article on LinkedIn. I kind of called out the journalists. I said, hey, where are you all at? You on vacation? The only response from anybody in the industry that's a journalist or an analyst came from David Gibbons, and David Gibbons is the editor of RT Media, and we all know that RT Media is backed pretty much by Ninestar. He's the only one that jumped in there. Oh, no, wait, hang on, Ray. I'm going to have a story out there on Monday. Because, see, David Gibbons is also intelligent, and he understands that the end of the day with Ray has a massive audience. And I'm not saying that to brag. I'm saying that because it's the reality, and the numbers prove it. And he wants the world to know, hey, I'm going to publish something. The problem is we also know that David Gibbons loves communist China. I had him on the end of the day with Ray, and he was debating the merits of communism. But he's out there willing to fight for his reasoning. And no one in our industry, no one here in the free world wanted to jump on there and say, David, wait a second, and give their opinion. No, they don't want to do it. Because they don't have permission from Lexmark. They don't have permission from Ninestar. They're more concerned about their sponsorship money than they are about bringing the news and the realities and the analytics to the marketplace, and that has to change. Ladies and gentlemen, do you find it ironic that I've been doing this for 5 years? I'm just about ready to hit my 1,000th episodes, 1,000 episodes of The End of the Day with Ray. And none of our industry's media analysts have ever shared an episode and said that Ray is crazy. He just did an episode on Wednesday or Thursday or Monday, and what he said is totally wrong, and here's the right stuff. They've never done any of that. But yet our industry's media analysts are still out there trying to convince the world that The End of the Day with Ray is not telling the truth, that he's misinformed. And folks, that's crazy, because if they really believe that, why in the world would they not share that? Don't they owe it to you, the audience, to share that? Hey, Ray did an episode. He's totally wrong. This is the right thing. Ray's talking about Ninestar and Lexmark. He doesn't know what he's talking about. This is the right stuff. Keypoint Intelligence, they published an article. Ladies and gentlemen, this is so absurd. They published an article regarding this Ninestar story. They used a whole bunch of words, and when you read them all, you accomplish nothing. A bunch of words that meant absolutely nothing. They actually said in their article that there's nothing more they could say based on what's already been said by Reuters, Wall Street Journal, or NASDAQ. I'm like, what the hell? Wall Street Journal, Reuters, and NASDAQ, all they did was put a link to the Homeland Security's website that said that Ninestar and 8 of its subsidiaries were banned from bringing products into the U.S. supply chain. You're telling me that Keypoint Intelligence, with analysts all over the world, had nothing to say on top of that? Ladies and gentlemen, when I heard about this story on Friday, you know what I did? By the way, it was a week ago Friday. You know what I did? I came down here in the basement. I did an episode. You know why I was able to do that 4.5-minute episode right off the bat? Because I've been studying this for the last year and a half pretty intensely. I've been talking to you about geopolitics concerning the Chinese Communist Party and PRC-owned companies in our space for a year and a half pretty heavily. I was ready. And since I did that episode, I did 5 other ones. 6 episodes and 2 articles, and our industry's media have done nothing. And yet they want to tell you that I'm the one that's misinformed. That they're so much better because they might spell all the words right. They're so much better because their diction's better. They don't mispronounce words. They're so much better because of this or that. Well, at the end of the day, if they're so much better, then they owe it to the audience to tell them where I'm wrong. Keypoint Intelligence, they talk about being this great news outlet. Ladies and gentlemen, if you go to their YouTube channel, they've had 8,800 views since 2009. I'm going to say something here, and I'm not saying it again to be bragging, but this is the reality. The End of the Day with Ray has had 11,300 views in the last 28 days. And the reason that people are coming here to listen to this content is because they know that I'm going to say what needs to be said. It's not about clickbait like some of you journalists are trying to convince yourself. It's about me working my butt off to try to help the industry. Just because you don't like the message doesn't mean it's not helping the industry. And quite honestly, I wish our industry's media and analysts would focus more on the problems the industry's having. Not every day is about sharing the news about a picnic. This story is getting old with Lexmark. It's just going to fade away, just like you allowed the one that's alleged to fade away, but nothing changed, nothing got better. Nobody learned from the disasters. Nobody learned from the disasters at Konica Minolta. OEMs, I'm going to ask you a favor as I wrap up today's episode, and that favor is this. Call up Keypoint Intelligence and stop buying those BLI awards for 2 years. We owe it to the industry. You need to help the industry, OEMs. If you did not feed the Keypoint Intelligence Bank by buying these OEM awards, they would have to do other things to bring value to that company. And the other things they would have to do would be focus on their analytics and their analysts all over the world. Would be to focus on the OEMs and what they need to really share about these OEMs. Maybe then the industry would see more value in Keypoint Intelligence. Maybe then the industry would get more prepared for what it's going to run into. Because the problems aren't over. And OEMs, you have so much more to worry about than the BLI summer pick, winter pick, or spring pick. I get it. The awards are about slapping each other on the back to make you all feel good, but you need to slap each other on the back to wake you up to realities. We have to change the way we're manufacturing as regarding China. That's a big, big deal. It's going to cost a lot of money to do it. And we need to prepare the industry for the implications of what's going to happen regarding this Ninestar Lexmark deal. OEMs, do me a favor. Call Keypoint Intelligence and tell them you're not going to buy a BLI award for the next 2 years. If you do that, I guarantee you, maybe the industry will start thinking a little bit different. And it's going to take different thoughts coming from different people, driving different conversations to change. Because everybody watching me knows this. Status quo is the killer of all that'll be invented. Don't get stuck in status quo, and I'll see y'all tomorrow.